First Contact Folly. Commander Vextar of the Zolaxian Imperial Fleet adjusted the ceremonial medals adorning his exoskeleton as he prepared to receive the human delegation. Standing nearly 9 feet tall with iridescent blue-green scales and 4 articulated arms, he cut an imposing figure that had intimidated countless species across the galaxy. Today marked the first official meeting between the Galactic Alliance and representatives from Earth, a backwater planet that had somehow developed faster than light travel decades earlier than Alliance intelligence had predicted. These humans, Vextar muttered to his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Krell, barely out of their atmospheric cradles and already demanding a seat at the table. Krell, smaller but no less imposing with his crimson scales, nodded in agreement. Their audacity is remarkable, Commander. Still, Alliance Central insists we treat them with courtesy. The way he pronounced the last word made it sound like a disease. Courtesy, Vextar repeated with a dismissive click of his mandibles. I'll show them exactly the courtesy they deserve. The grand reception hall of the Celestial Accord, the Alliance's massive diplomatic vessel, hummed with activity as representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations gathered for the historic meeting. The humans were scheduled to arrive last, a deliberate scheduling choice by Vextar to emphasize their junior status. A soft chime announced the arrival of the human shuttle, and Vextar straightened to his full height. The massive doors at the far end of the hall parted, revealing the human delegation. Leading the group was a tall, silver-haired woman wearing a crisp white uniform adorned with colorful ribbons and insignia that Vextar assumed denoted rank. Behind her followed 12 others, a mix of what appeared to be diplomats, scientists, and military personnel based on their attire. Most interesting to Vextar were the 4 younger humans at the rear, wearing matching dark blue uniforms with minimal decoration. Ambassador Ilana Torres, representing Earth and the United Solar Systems, the silver-haired woman announced, her voice carrying easily across the hall without technological assistance, impressive for such a small being. Vextar stepped forward, his ceremonial armor clicking softly with each movement. I am Supreme Commander Vextar of the Zolaxian Imperial Fleet and current Presiding Officer of the Galactic Alliance. You are welcomed. The pause before the last word was deliberate, as was the subtle clicking sound that accompanied it. A sound that, while meaningless to humans, signified condescension in Zolaxian communication. Ambassador Torres either didn't notice or chose to ignore the slight. Thank you, Commander. We are honored to be here and look forward to establishing peaceful and productive relations with the Alliance. Indeed, Vextar replied, scanning the delegation with his compound eyes. I see you've brought younglings with you. Is this common practice in human diplomatic missions? The ambassador smiled politely. These are not children, Commander. They are top graduates from our Solar Defense Academy, selected to learn from the Alliance military as part of our integration process. Each has distinguished themselves in service to humanity. Vextar's mandibles twitched in what passed for amusement among his kind. How quaint. I suppose everyone must start somewhere, even if centuries behind the rest of us. One of the young humans, a female with dark hair pulled back tightly from a face with distinctly East Asian features, seemed to stiffen slightly at his words, though her expression remained neutral. Perhaps introductions are in order, Torres suggested smoothly. Our cadets represent the best of Earth's next generation of leaders. Vextar waved a dismissive hand. If you insist. The ambassador gestured to each cadet in turn. Cadet Ibrahim Al-Fahim, specializing in sinolinguistics. Cadet Sven Johansson, astrophysics and navigation. Cadet Diego Ramirez, tactical systems. Finally, she indicated the female who had reacted to Vextar's earlier comment. And Cadet Maya Chen, specializing in adaptive combat and high-gravity environments. This last cadet caught Vextar's attention. She was shorter than the others, but stood with a quiet confidence that intrigued him. Unlike the others who seemed either awed or intimidated by their surroundings, her dark eyes met his compound gaze directly. High-gravity environments. Vextar inquired, moving closer to the cadets. What does that entail? Before the ambassador could answer, Cadet Chen spoke. I was born on Mars, Commander, but trained on Jupiter's moon Callisto under triple Earth normal gravity. My specialty is adapting combat techniques to variable gravitational conditions. Vextar was surprised by her directness. Most species newly introduced to the Alliance were properly deferential, even fearful. This small human showed neither. You speak without permission, Cadet, Vextar said, looming over her. At 9 feet tall, he towered over the 5'5" human. My apologies, Commander, Chen replied, though her tone carried no hint of contrition. I assumed since you asked about my specialty directly, a direct response was appropriate. Murmurs rippled through the gathered Alliance representatives. No one spoke to a Zolaxian commander this way, especially not a junior officer from an unproven species. Vextar felt a flicker of anger. This human needed to learn her place. Tell me, little Earth creature, he said, the translation matrix perfectly conveying his condescension. Do you believe your species is ready to join the galactic community? Your kind has only recently discovered faster-than-light travel, a technology we Zolaxians mastered 5,000 cycles ago. Chen's expression remained neutral. With respect, Commander, readiness isn't just about technological advancement. It's about perspective, adaptability, and determination, qualities humans have in abundance. Vextar circled her slowly, a predatory movement designed to intimidate. The other cadets tensed, but Chen remained motionless, only her eyes tracking his movement. Bold words, Vextar said. Perhaps too bold. In the Alliance, respect for hierarchy is paramount, something your species will need to learn quickly. Ambassador Torres stepped forward. Commander, perhaps we should proceed with the formal introductions to the Council. One moment, Ambassador, Vextar interrupted, holding up one of his 4 hands. I find it educational to understand the quality of new applicants to our Alliance. He returned his attention to Chen. Tell me, Cadet, how would humans defend themselves if a superior force decided your admission was premature? We would hope for diplomacy, Chen answered evenly, but prepare for all contingencies. Diplomatic indeed, Vextar scoffed, but utterly naive. Without warning, Vextar swung one of his lower arms in a swift backhanded motion toward Chen's face, not with his full strength, but enough to knock any lesser being to the ground and demonstrate the proper order of things. What happened next occurred so quickly that many in the hall missed it entirely. Chen's hand shot up and caught Vextar's arm mid-swing, stopping it dead with apparently minimal effort. In the split second that followed, her other hand gripped his exoskeleton at a precise point where his arm connected to his torso, applying pressure to what humans couldn't possibly know was a Zolaxian nerve cluster. Excruciating pain shot through Vextar's body. His knees buckled involuntarily, and a high-pitched keening sound escaped his breathing apertures as he found himself suddenly kneeling before the small human, one arm immobilized in her grip. The entire hall fell silent in shock. Please don't, Chen said quietly, her voice calm and controlled despite the situation. I don't want to damage your neural pathways permanently. 3 seconds. It had taken just 3 seconds for this human to bring him, Supreme Commander of the Zolaxian fleet, to his knees in front of the entire Alliance delegation. Release me, Vextar managed to say, his voice modulator betraying his pain, and more shamefully, his fear. Of course, Commander, Chen replied, immediately letting go and stepping back to her position beside the other cadets, who stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to admiration. Vextar stumbled to his feet, his dignity in tatters. The pain receded quickly, but the humiliation burned like acid through his system. Ambassador Torres cleared her throat. Commander Vextar, I must formally protest your unprovoked aggression toward a member of our delegation. However, I'm willing to attribute this to a cultural misunderstanding, if you are. The diplomatic way out was clear, but Vextar could barely think through his rage and embarrassment. The hall remained deathly quiet, all eyes on him. "How?" he finally managed, staring at Chen. "How did you know where to strike?" Chen's expression softened slightly. "I didn't strike, Commander. I applied precisely calculated pressure. As for how I knew, before coming here, all cadets were required to study the physiological vulnerabilities of major Alliance species, standard protocol for any first contact scenario." Another murmur went through the crowd, this one distinctly uneasy. Humans had prepared detailed studies on how to incapacitate Alliance species before even meeting them. Sub-Commander Krell stepped forward, attempting to salvage the situation. "Perhaps we should proceed with the formal introductions, Commander." Vextar straightened, forcing his composed facade back into place, despite the whispers and stares from the assembled dignitaries. "Yes, the Council awaits." He turned to Torres, deliberately avoiding looking at Chen. "Ambassador, if you will follow me." As they moved toward the inner chamber where the Alliance Council waited, Vextar cast one final glance back at Cadet Chen. She stood at perfect attention, her expression once again neutral, but their eyes met briefly. In that moment, Vextar realized a fundamental truth that would soon shake the Alliance to its core. Humans were not just another insignificant species stumbling onto the galactic stage. They were something else entirely, something potentially dangerous. And Cadet Maya Chen had just ensured that no one in the hall would forget it. Unexpected alliance. The days following what was now being called the Chen incident were among the worst of Vextar's long career. Though Ambassador Torres had graciously agreed to continue diplomatic relations, news of the confrontation had spread throughout the Alliance like wildfire. Recordings of the incident, captured by dozens of personal and official devices, were being shared across every communication channel in Alliance space. In his private quarters aboard the Celestial Accord, Vextar watched one such recording for what must have been the 100th time. The image froze on his own face, mandibles splayed in shock, compound eyes wide with pain and surprise as he knelt before the small human female. "Delete recording," he snarled, and the holographic image vanished. A soft chime announced a visitor. "Enter," he said, expecting Sub-Commander Krell with yet more bad news about the political fallout. Instead, the door slid open to reveal Cadet Maya Chen. Vextar instinctively took a step back, a reaction that shamed him instantly. "Cadet," he said stiffly, "this is unexpected." Chen stood at the threshold, wearing her formal uniform. "Permission to enter, Commander." "Granted," Vextar replied after a moment's hesitation. As she stepped inside, he noticed she moved with the same fluid efficiency he had observed before. No wasted motion, no unnecessary gestures. It was almost Zolaxian. "Why are you here?" he demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. "To apologize," Chen said, surprising him again. "Apologize," Vextar repeated incredulously. "For what?" "For humiliating you publicly," she replied simply. "It was not my intention. My training triggered an automatic response to neutralize a threat, but I should have found a way to de-escalate without causing you to lose face." Vextar studied her, searching for signs of mockery or insincerity, but finding none. "You acted within your rights after I initiated physical contact," he admitted reluctantly. "In Zolaxian culture, your response would be considered proportionate." Chen nodded. "Nevertheless, I understand how damaging this has been for your position. Ambassador Torres sent me to offer a proposal that might benefit us both." Vextar gestured to a seating area, designed to accommodate various Alliance physiologies. "I'm listening." "A joint training exercise," Chen explained as they sat. "Publicly announced and conducted. A demonstration of Zolaxian and human military cooperation, showing that our species can work together effectively despite our differences." Vextar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. A public reconciliation disguised as a military exercise. Clever. But why would I agree to this? Because in approximately 6 hours, the Celestial Accord will receive a distress call from the Tauri scientific outpost in the Helios cluster. Chen said calmly. A previously unknown alien species is attacking the facility. The outpost will go dark shortly after transmitting fragmentary sensor data showing biological weapons being deployed. Vextar froze. How could you possibly know this? Because it's already happening, Chen replied. Earth long-range sensors detected the attack 4 hours ago. Due to our position relative to the Helios cluster, we'd received the transmission before it will reach Alliance communication arrays. Vextar stood abruptly. If this is true, why are we wasting time talking? We must alert the Council immediately. Ambassador Torres is briefing the Council now, Chen assured him. But there's more. These attackers, we're calling them the Swarm, use biological weapons specifically designed to target exoskeletal species. The Tauri are particularly vulnerable, as are Zolaxians. Vextar finished grimly. And you're telling me this because humans are immune, Chen said. Our endoskeletal structure and different biochemistry make us resistant to their bioweapons. The ambassador is proposing a joint rescue mission led by you, with human cadets serving as the frontline team to extract any survivors. Vextar paced the room, his mind racing through tactical possibilities. This is why you came to apologize. To leverage my humiliation into accepting human assistance. Chen stood to face him. No, Commander. I came to apologize because it was the right thing to do. I'm offering this opportunity because it's also the right thing. People are dying while we talk. Before Vextar could respond, his communication console chimed urgently. Commander Vextar to the Council chamber immediately, came the voice of the Alliance High Chancellor. Emergency situation developing. It appears your information was correct, Vextar said, already moving toward the door. Come with me, Cadet. If your ambassador is proposing what you've described, the Council will want to hear from both of us. 6 hours later, Vextar found himself in the unlikeliest of positions, commanding a rescue mission where his own survival depended entirely on a team of 4 human cadets. The Celestial Accord had arrived at the Helios cluster via emergency FTL jump, confirming the horror Chen had described. The Tauri outpost, home to over 300 scientists and their families, had been attacked by massive insectoid creatures deploying a biological agent that dissolved exoskeletal structures on contact. In the shuttle bay, Vextar watched as Chen and her fellow cadets prepared for the mission. They were donning specially designed hazard suits, a human technology previously unknown to the Alliance that provided complete biological isolation while maintaining tactical flexibility. Your suits will protect you from conventional weapons, Vextar explained, but not from direct physical damage. These swarm creatures are reported to be at least twice your size with natural armor plating. Understood, Commander, Chen replied as she checked her equipment. But remember, in this gravity, we have certain advantages. Vextar had been briefed on the advantages Chen referenced. Earth's gravity was significantly higher than most Alliance homeworlds, including Zolax. As a result, humans who trained in Earth gravity, or higher, in Chen's case, possessed strength and speed that belied their smaller stature. The mission parameters are clear, Vextar continued. Extract any survivors, gather intelligence on the enemy, and retreat. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. With respect, Commander, Cadet Ramirez said, checking the charge on what appeared to be a primitive projectile weapon. If these things are killing civilians, engagement may become necessary. Your primary objective is rescue, Vextar insisted. We need information more than vengeance. Agreed, Chen said, giving Ramirez a pointed look. We follow the commander's orders. The shuttle pilot, protected within a sealed cockpit, signaled readiness. As the cadets boarded, Vextar found himself addressing Chen one final time. Cadet Chen, I would not have chosen this collaboration under normal circumstances. I'm aware, Commander. However, Vextar continued, I find myself grateful for your species' unique capabilities at this moment. Chen nodded, understanding the closest thing to an apology she was likely to receive. "We'll bring them home, Commander." The shuttle approached the Tory outpost under stealth protocols. Through the viewports, the cadets could see the devastation. Parts of the facility were breached, exposing interior sections to space. Bodies, or what remained of them, floated amid the debris. "Life signs detected," reported the pilot. "Faint signals from the central hub. Approximately 12 survivors." "That structure is still intact and pressurized," observed Cadet Johansson, studying the sensor readouts. "But there's something else. Multiple large organic signatures moving inside." "The swarm," Chen said grimly. "How many?" "At least 20, Johansson replied. "They appear to be concentrated near the life support hub, right where the survivors are." Vextar's voice came through their comms. "We've detected a suitable docking port on the auxiliary maintenance bay. It appears undamaged." "Copy that," Chen replied. "We'll enter through there and proceed to the central hub." The shuttle executed a perfect docking maneuver, attaching to the outpost with barely a tremor. As the airlock cycled, the cadets performed final equipment checks. "Remember," Chen told her team, "we have no idea what these things are capable of. Standard formation, weapons ready but safe until we confirm hostility." The inner airlock door slid open, revealing a darkened corridor lit only by emergency lighting. The cadets activated their helmet lamps and moved forward in practiced formation, Chen in the lead. The interior of the outpost showed signs of a desperate struggle. Claw marks gouged the metal walls, and dark stains that could only be blood spattered various surfaces. Most disturbing were the partial remains they encountered. Exoskeletons half dissolved by some corrosive agent, the soft tissues apparently consumed. Biometric scanner shows residual traces of the bioweapon, Cadet Alphahim reported, studying the handheld device. "It appears to be dormant once deployed, not airborne or self-replicating." "Small mercies," muttered Ramirez, his weapon tracking each shadow as they moved. They proceeded cautiously toward the central hub, encountering no living creatures along the way. The eerie silence was broken only by the occasional creak of the damaged station and their own breathing inside their helmets. "Life signs stronger now," Johansson reported as they approached a sealed bulkhead. "The survivors are definitely in the next section. The swarm signatures are also more concentrated." Chen approached the door controls. "This will be loud," she warned. "Once we're through, we move fast. Priority is reaching the survivors and establishing a defensive position." The team nodded in acknowledgement, weapons ready. Chen activated the emergency override, and the bulkhead slid open with a hydraulic hiss that seemed deafening in the silence. Immediately, a high-pitched chittering sound erupted from within. The cadets moved through the doorway into a large central chamber that had been transformed into a nightmare landscape. Organic resin covered portions of the walls and floor, forming cocoon-like structures. Inside some of these transparent sacs were Tory victims in various stages of dissolution, and moving among them were the swarm. Chen had seen many alien species during her training, but nothing like these creatures. They stood nearly 10 feet tall on 6 segmented legs, with elongated bodies covered in chitinous black armor. Each had multiple sets of arms ending in either razor-sharp claws or what appeared to be organic spray nozzles, the likely delivery system for their bioweapon. "Contact," Chen said calmly into her comm. "Visual confirmation of the swarm. They appear to be harvesting the victims." "The survivors." Vextar's voice came through, tense but controlled. Johansson checked his scanner. "Behind that secondary bulkhead," he said, pointing to a reinforced door across the chamber. "They've barricaded themselves in the environmental control room." "We need to cross the entire chamber," Chen assessed. "No way to do this quietly." The decision was made for them as one of the swarm creatures turned, its multiple compound eyes locking onto the human intruders. It emitted a piercing shriek that alerted the others, and suddenly all attention was focused on the cadets. "Move," Chen ordered, and the team sprinted into action. What followed was a display of human combat capability, unlike anything Vextar, watching through the Cadet's helmet cameras, had ever witnessed. The humans moved with extraordinary speed and coordination, evading the swarm's attacks with acrobatic precision. When direct confrontation couldn't be avoided, the results were even more astonishing. Chen engaged the first creature to block their path, dodging its initial spray of bioweapon fluid with a lateral roll that would have been impossible for most exoskeletal species. Coming up under its guard, she struck its joint sections with targeted blows that shattered the creature's natural armor. The other cadets demonstrated similar abilities, using their weapons only when necessary and relying primarily on their physical capabilities. Ramirez's projectile weapon proved particularly effective, the kinetic energy tearing through the swarm's armor at close range. "Commander," Chen reported as they fought their way across the chamber, "these creatures are strong but slow. Their tactics suggest minimal intelligence, possibly a hive mind structure with remote direction." "Understood," Vextar replied, his voice betraying his amazement at what he was witnessing. "Focus on reaching the survivors." The team battled their way to the environmental control room door, establishing a defensive perimeter as Alpha Him worked to unlock it. The swarm pressed their attack, seemingly unconcerned with their own casualties. "Almost there," Alpha Him reported as the door mechanisms began to respond. A larger swarm creature, clearly a specialized form with heavier armor, charged their position. Chen met it head-on, using its momentum against it in a technique that Vextar recognized from ancient Solaxian martial arts, long abandoned as their species came to rely on technological superiority rather than physical combat. The door slid open, revealing 12 terrified Tauri scientists huddled inside. "Alliance Rescue Team," Chen announced. "We're getting you out of here. Can everyone move under their own power?" The lead scientist, his exoskeleton showing early signs of degradation from exposure to the bioweapon, stepped forward. "Yes, but hurriedly. Your timing is fortunate. Our barricade was failing." "Johansson, Ramirez, escort formation," Chen ordered. "Alpha Him, data retrieval from their systems. I'll cover the rear." With practiced efficiency, the team organized the evacuation, moving back toward their entry point with the survivors in tow. The swarm continued their relentless attacks, but the humans' superior speed and combat skills kept them at bay. As they reached the final corridor to the airlock, disaster struck. A section of ceiling collapsed, cutting off their retreat and knocking Cadet Alpha Him to the ground. A swarm creature immediately pounced, its claws poised to strike. Without hesitation, Chen threw herself between Alpha Him and a creature, catching its descending claws with her bare hands. The force of the impact drove her to one knee, but she held firm, the creature's strength matched by her own. "Get them to the shuttle," she shouted to the others. "I'll find another way." Vextar, watching through the camera feeds, made an instant decision. "Negative, Cadet. No one gets left behind." He switched channels. "Pilot, execute emergency breach protocol at these coordinates." Seconds later, a controlled explosion blew open the corridor wall nearby, creating a new path to the shuttle. Ramirez and Johansson quickly diverted the survivors toward this new exit, while Chen continued her struggle with the swarm creature. With a final surge of strength, Chen twisted the creature's limbs and drove it backward into more of its kind, buying precious seconds. She scooped up the injured Alpha Him and sprinted for the new opening, diving through as more swarm creatures converged on their position. The shuttle disengaged from the station seconds later, its occupants secure but shaken. As they accelerated back toward the Celestial Accord, Chen made her report directly to Vextar. "Mission successful, Commander. All survivors extracted and minimal casualties on our side. Cadet Alpha Him will require medical attention, but his injuries are not life-threatening." "Well done, Cadet," Vextar replied, his tone conveying genuine respect. "And thank you." 2 days later, Vextar stood before the Alliance Council, presenting the findings from the rescue mission. The swarm had been identified as a previously unknown species from beyond Alliance space, apparently seeking biological resources. Thanks to data retrieved by the human cadets, defense strategies were already being developed. The successful rescue of the Tory scientists, Vextar concluded, was only possible due to the unique capabilities of our new human allies. Their immunity to the swarm's bioweapons and their exceptional physical abilities proved decisive. The council members murmured among themselves, clearly impressed. The High Chancellor spoke. "Commander Vextar, given your initial reservations about human integration into the Alliance, your endorsement carries particular weight. Do you now support their full membership?" Vextar turned to where Ambassador Torres and her cadets stood at attention. His gaze met Chen's briefly before he addressed the council. "Chancellor, distinguished members, my initial assessment of humans was based on inadequate information, and I must admit, prejudice. I believe their technological development indicated their overall advancement as a species." He paused. "I was wrong." The chamber fell silent. "Humans are not like us," Vextar continued. "They evolved under different conditions, developed different strengths. Where we built external armor, they developed internal strength. Where we created technological solutions, they honed their physical capabilities. These differences do not make them inferior. They make them invaluable allies." He turned fully to face Chen now. "Cadet Chen taught me this lesson. First through humiliation, yes, but then through cooperation and courage. I not only support human membership in the Alliance, I propose that we establish an immediate exchange program between our military academies to learn from each other's strengths." The proposal was met with enthusiastic approval from the Council. As the session concluded, Vextar approached Chen directly. "You have changed much in a short time, Commander," she observed. "Perhaps," Vextar replied, "or perhaps I simply recognized a truth that was always there. Different does not mean lesser. In fact, our differences may be our greatest collective strength." Chen smiled. "That sounds remarkably like a human philosophy, Commander." "Then perhaps," Vextar said, extending one of his 4 hands in the human gesture of friendship, "humans have more to teach us than I ever imagined." Chen took his hand without hesitation, the gesture symbolic of a new understanding, not just between 2 individuals, but between 2 species with the potential to transform the galaxy together.